Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And it looks as though Nicola Sturgeon's push to enshrine in law a man's absolute right to enter a woman's safe space may be finding some pushback from within her own party. Apart from the wonderful Ash Regan resigning in principle on the matter, the principle being she felt uncomfortable in endangering women's safety, at least 6 other SNP MPs have voted against the bill, with a further 2 abstaining. And there are general rumblings of discontent, many thinking that the age of 16 is far too young, which it is. But let's look at this article to see what's going on. So here we are. Nicola Sturgeon could be forced to water down gender law changes to quell a rebellion within her own SNP's ranks. Mrs. Sturgeon wants a new law to make it easier for transgender people to self-ID. She wants this, of course, because she wants men to access women's safe spaces where there may also be young girls and other children. It seems to be the most important thing on her mind, other than obviously independence. It's number 2 in her list of priorities. Is giving these trans weirdos full rights to access children, effectively. J.K. Rowling wore the t-shirt branding Nicola Sturgeon a destroyer of women's rights. Not only the destroyer of her rights, but someone who is actually and definitely endangering women. The writer also backed 4 Women Scotland activists who protested at Holyrood. And amid the row, it appears the First Minister may now be considering watering the bill down because she knows that it's an awful bill. But she's still pushing ahead with it because it's very important to her that she can stand up and show that the people of Scotland have got the right kind of person in charge. Someone who is definitely not giving one shit about the safety of women. After all, she's very friendly with a man who's just gone to prison for, let's just say, the most awful of crimes. Controversial changes to Scotland's gender laws could be watered down as Nicola Sturgeon desperately tries to quell the rebellion within the SNP's ranks. The First Minister, who is in Egypt at COP27 for no reason whatsoever, she's not a national leader, she is at best a town mayor. And she is reportedly looking at an amendment which would make it more difficult for under 18s to change their sex after a row with J.K. Rowling and protests outside Holyrood. Now, I don't care what she thinks she can do in law. There is absolutely no way at all, ever, that you can change your sex, because that is determined at the moment of conception, and your body chemistry from that moment forward makes you male or female, and there is nothing you can do. And you can call yourself what you like, you can cut bits off, you can put on a pretty frock, but if you were born a man, you are, until the moment you die, a man. Ms. Sturgeon has been involved in a public war of words with the Harry Potter author over the trans issues and the Scottish Government's legislation to make it quicker and easier for individuals as young as 16 to change sex with no requirement for medical reports or evidence. Again, they keep saying change sex. That cannot happen. If you're a man and you decide you're going to be a lady, what are you going to do about your prostate? That stays. And you certainly don't suddenly develop ovaries and a cervix because you're a man. It's just stupid. But then these people are very, very stupid. But in a sign that the First Minister may be about to budge, veteran nationalist backbencher Christine Graham is now set to table a compromise today or tomorrow that demands that 16 and 17-year-olds take more time to consider a transition. It's too young, she said. Yes, it definitely is. It's also abuse because they are allowing them to do it just simply on a whim and without any kind of psychological or psychiatric investigation into their problems. They could be changing things, go down a one-way street and destroying their futures when they're not gender dysphoric. They're simply mentally troubled or emotionally troubled in some other way. But that's not what Sturgeon wants, because this has got nothing to do with gender rights or anything like that. This is the SNP's push, along with many others, but using the trans lobby, they're pushing for the normalisation of P. because that is the direction of travel for the SNP, and we know that that's what the P in SNP stands for now. The first reading of the bill sparked the largest rebellion of the SNP era in office, with Minister Ash Regan resigning, 6 other MSPs voting against the government and 2 more abstaining. However, critics say the Graham Amendment would not prevent the erosion of women's rights, and it won't, because anything that allows a man to enter a changing room, where there is a woman or young children, is quite plainly wrong. The campaign group for Women Scotland insisted all the proposal would do is simply tinker with timescales. Yeah, it just means that it won't be 16-year-old boys entering a room with young girls undressing. It'll be 18-year-old men entering a changing room where young girls will be undressing. But that's what Nicola Sturgeon is driving for. It's what she so desperately believes in, and it's why it is the second most important issue in her mind. And you have to wonder why this strange little shart is pushing this warped, depraved agenda. If the Scottish Parliament wants evidence of what is best for this age group, it would be best advised to wait on the independent cash review of children's gender identity services in England to complete its work and then implement its findings. Oh, no, she really doesn't want that, because the CAS report is going to be very much the opposite of what Sturgeon wants to hear, because the CAS report is actually looking at the safety of children. And that's the last thing on Nicola Sturgeon's mind. Miss Budge added, "We can only wonder how any service provider wishing to run a women-only service can possibly make any sense of the tangled web our legislators are weaving." The way it's working with this in hand in hand with the hate bill that they've pushed through means that a man can, let's say, for example, a man can infiltrate a crisis centre for women who have been attacked in that way hard. He can sit there, wear a frock, be quite plainly a man, wear a frock, insist that he is regarded as a woman, and if a woman who is a victim complains about that, the man can then go to the police and have that woman arrested and questioned for hate crime. Well done, Nicola Sturgeon. You cannot at any point tell me that is about the safeguarding of vulnerable women. But that's the last thing on your tiny, warped, nasty, evil little brain. Anyway, the bill currently allows for those who wish to change sex to self-identify with no medical diagnosis of dysphoria. They would only have to live with their new sex for 3 months with another 3-month period of reflection. However, last month's stage 1 vote, overwhelmingly carried by the Scottish Government in the teeth of public opposition, saw Miss Regan's resignation as Community Safety Minister and open dissent amongst backbenchers. It is quite clear in Scotland that the people do not want this. This was not part of the SNP's manifesto. It's against the wishes of the vast majority of Scottish people. But she's pushing this regardless, because Nicola Sturgeon has only got 2 priorities: independence and pushing this agenda that allow men access to children. They are the only 2 things that she gives any kind of about. Party chiefs fear further breakdowns in discipline as the bill proceeds through the Scottish Parliament, and proposed changes will be considered by MSPs at the Stage 2 committee stage. According to the Sunday Times yesterday, ministers would be sympathetic to the amendment. It would require 16 and 17-year-olds to have lived in their new sex for 6 months, twice the length of the time currently stipulated in the bill. Youngsters would also have to declare that they had been living as their chosen sex before the clock starts. It won't protect any woman. And when these things happen, and we know they're happening, we've done the video on the man living in a woman's refuge for 10 weeks. So it's bullshit if anyone says this isn't going to happen. It's already happening. So at no point are women in any way safe, and it will get worse, and it will get worse as a direct result of this bill. And has ever there been a bill that anyone can sit there at a distance and say, yeah, that was the cause of all these problems, this is it? And who is pushing this bill? Nicola Sturgeon. This is her bill. This is her life's work to get this bill through, because she has no regard for the safety of Scottish children or women. Social Justice Secretary Shona Robinson said, "I will listen to anyone who has constructive comments or is seeking to improve the bill through amendments as I would with any bill." Let's just explore that. Shona Robinson said she would listen to anyone. Well, she didn't listen to anyone when they were drafting this bill because 5 women who were the victims of R wanted to speak at the committee hearing on this bill and were told they could not. However, 17 men who like to pretend that they're women were given a voice. So we know exactly about what this Shona Robinson is speaking. She's speaking bullshit, right? She's confident that we'll be able to find common ground. Well, you haven't yet, and you haven't even listened to women. The Harry Potter author and the First Minister are at loggerheads over trans issues and the Scottish Government's legislation to make it quicker and easier for individuals as young as 16 to change sex with no requirement for medical reports or evidence. And what is worse, what is absolutely the worst part of this, is in Scotland, Scottish schools are being told that if a child as young as 10, say, wants to change gender and be known as a she instead of a he or whatever, they are not to inform the parents. So they're saying to the schools, oh no, you got this made-to life thing with the child and you've got to keep it a secret from the parents. That strikes me as grooming, and it is exactly the sort of behaviour that Ps do. So again, the SNP who've brought this in to say don't tell the parents, and they're saying, oh no, it's going to be quite normalised for people in authority of children who are not the parents to ensure that those secrets are kept away from the parents. Now that'll be a little secret. We mustn't tell your parents. They're fucking groomers, every damn one of them. And that's what the P in SNP stands for. Good luck, Scotland. I'm coming up. Come the next election, Scotland's got a very difficult decision. The vast majority of Scots vote SNP, and yet they are the ones endangering the women and children. So what's it going to be? Loyalty to the party or loyalty to your family? And isn't it funny how they sneaked this in? Because this wasn't on the manifesto. But it wouldn't be, would it? No one is going to come knocking on your door come election time going, this is our manifesto. And yes, we're going to allow men access to women's safe spaces, access to women's crisis centres, to women's DV refuges. And you can't say it doesn't happen. We've just seen the case of it happening. And they will be in those changing rooms in front of your children. And let me tell you, they haven't had any operation. They've just thrown a dress on and now they're women. But they're women with the huge pair and the long one. Dangling it around in front of your kids. And if you complain, you're the one guilty of hate crime. Because that's what Sturgeon has done to Scotland. I pity you. And I hope you make a very wise decision at the next election. Because it is an unenviable position to be in. But this is what happens when you vote in obsessive, pro-P groomers. And that's all she is now. She is the groomer in chief of Scotland. She is trying to normalise P, and she's doing it salami slice, piece by piece by piece. Normalise this, normalise this, normalise this, until eventually normalising P. And that's the direction of travel, and that's what the SNP and the Greens particularly are all up for. And why do you think they don't want teachers telling you about your children? Got to keep those little secrets between us. Can't let your parents find out, can we? I'll end now. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, vote carefully, and goodbye.